guys, it's Nova, and we're back with another little character designing video. I'm kind of excited to do this again. I really enjoyed the last one. I need to really figure out how I'm going to be scripting these. I think that'll be useful going forward. But I really wanted to do one with Linden's civilian form especially, but also figuring out his non-chibi design for his transformed state. I thought that doing both would be a good idea. I could put them both side by side and see how they look on either way, on either side, either design. And it lets me talk a little bit more about them, as well as troubleshoot some things that I needed to when taking his transformed design from a chibi to my regular style, because it was a little bit of a mistake to design him in my more chibi drawing like that, especially with it being one of the more pretty types. Now, the last time I did this, I had a lot of fun with it, so I'm looking forward to doing more and using it also to explain a bit more about Trace and how things work in it and what it is. But first, focusing in on this, I really wanted to work on, the civilian design for Linden, because their transformed states are going to look a bit different from their civilian designs, and several of my characters have their civilian designs done, but not their transformed ones, and so far, he's the only one to have a transformed state. So when I was sketching this, I forgot a key thing, which is always do warm-ups. Always do warm-ups. It doesn't matter if you're sitting down just to work on something for a few minutes, do a couple of warm-ups. It helps. Sorry, I will try and keep throat clearing, coughing, and sniffling to a minimum. Once again, I am sick, because of course I am. But, I digress. Do warm-ups, definitely. That was a problem I had with this, and it led to struggles with posing and trying to figure out what I was doing. So, talking about his design itself, for one thing, obviously, I pulled up the chibi design as a reference because there were a couple of things that I was bringing over directly. One of which being the shape of his eyes, which I really liked. I really like kind of the doe-eyed kind of look that he has going on with that eye shape. I think it's really cute, and I also think it really suits the character and what I'm going for with that character. So I wanted to make sure that I kept that. But another thing that I wanted to try and get as close as possible, even though he's facing the opposite direction, and boy, that gave me its own fits when I was sketching, was the way his hair looks, at least the upper part, without the extension down to the little, representation of the unicorn tail. Now with that, I wanted to keep the basic shape of the hair. He's one where his hair shape doesn't change too much except for getting that extension. But his base hair, I really like it being soft and flippy looking, and I wanted to make sure that I kept that, and I wanted to make sure that I kept it in a pretty similar style, so I needed that for a reference, but trying to do it with his head turned in the opposite direction, it gave me fits. It was so frustrating trying to figure out, okay, exactly how am I wanting to draw this and portray this, and then whenever I was inking, it was just a nightmare of, okay, which lines are getting lost in the eyes, and which lines are actually the hair. That was its own set of nightmare fits and frustration. But I really did want to keep both of those. And it also came in handy for the coloring, keeping the reference up, because when I do get to the coloring phase, I've got to eyedropper the skin tone, because I wanted to keep it the same. I'm not going to change the skin tone for the transformed state. I don't see why that would be necessary. But also to see where a couple of the little markings that I put along his nose and also his cheeks, because I wanted to keep those and have at least one of the cheek markings being like a little mole, and then one along the nose being like another one, because that was just something that I really liked, something I wanted to keep in his natural state that kind of carried over and then became a more magical feature, slightly different in color. But with his design, getting his expression down, I wanted to make it kind of a friendly, open expression, because with his friends, Linden is the type to be very, very friendly and very open with his friends. With people he doesn't know, he's very awkward and shy, but when he is with the people that he cares about, he is the golden retriever person. He may as well be the human embodiment of a golden retriever with his companions, because he's just like, hi, I love you, hi, I like being friends. And just, I love him. He is a sweetheart, he is precious, but he's also very shy, at least around other people. But because I was trying to portray him more how he is with everyone else, I went for a more open and hey kind of pose, rather than an I don't know what I'm doing kind of pose, which is what I would be doing otherwise. And he's got a bit of a lack of confidence, and while I didn't portray that in his pose, I like to think that it mostly comes out in regard to, for one thing, performing, because he is a music major. He loves music, actually. He's a music major because the Trace characters, I want to say, most of them, not all of them, but most of the Trace characters are college kids. Most of them are in college, the exception obviously being Clover as the group baby, because she is Poppy's little sister. Little bit of a lore tidbit on that. Clover is Poppy's little sister. I got them backwards. So that's how she kind of gets roped into everything. But everyone else is college students. And as I said, Linden is a music major. He gets really into the more studious side of it. And I tried to reflect that in his outfit and his costuming, with the button down under the sweater that has kind of Gryffindor colors. That was not intentional. I'm realizing it now. Oops. But he's got the button down with the sweater, and then the khakis, and the more dressy kind of shoes. And I really liked that. I thought that was very fitting for his character, because while he is energetic and friendly around his friends, around everybody else, he tends to more so, and in class especially, he tends to present the more studious kind of person and kind of young adult. He is very serious about his major. He enjoys the mathematical side of music that goes into it. And he takes it very seriously. He loves analysis of different musical pieces as well as of lyrics. But he also does like to perform, but he gets very shy. And he's one of these. He knows how to play the violin. He's played since a young age. And he also has a very lovely singing voice, despite not being very confident of it. And I think that a lot of reason, this is going to be a little bit of a background story kind of tidbit for everyone. A lot of that stems from, I believe, his family life. Because he was good at math as well as music, I think that his family really wanted him to pursue something a bit more academic and mathematical. Maybe engineering or something of that kind of nature. But he didn't want that. He wanted something more creative, something a bit more interesting to him, which was music. And I think that when his parents realized that that was what he was going for, there was a bit of attempts to undermine, and that came at chipping away at his confidence. And that did have lasting results. So I do think he is very shy, as sweet as he is. And one thing I did with the coloring, I really wanted to, for some reason he just struck me as blonde. But one thing I didn't realize until I colored him, and then I colored his counterpart for the transformed state, it took me a minute to realize I gave him gray eyes, so kind of silvery eyes, and yellow hair, whereas when he's transformed, I gave him kind of a silvery blue hair and yellow eyes. That was not intentional. I would love to say it was, but that was not intentional. I thought it was fitting. I really liked the blonde hair with the gray eyes, because I love that combo. I think it looks cute. I think it's pretty, and I think it really suits him. He strikes me as blonde with gray eyes. And I really like that, and I think that doing that turned out to be a really good thing design-wise. I also, on his civilian form, I tried to stay away from the primary color for his transform state being a primary color in his civilian outfit. Because for some reason, with anything like this, even though I can't really think of a magical girl counterpart that does this, I genuinely can't, which I may just be showing my lack of knowledge of magical girl stuff, but what comes to my mind is Power Rangers, where all of the Power Rangers in their civilian forms are wearing the color of whatever ranger they are. And for some reason, that just keeps clicking, and I keep having to fight the urge to do that with my characters, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to be, okay, this one's like the white and gold, so he should be wearing like white and gold. No, I'm not gonna do that. You know, he's the purple one, so he's gonna be wearing purple. No, and again, I don't know why my mind has stuck so prominently on that, even though I know it specifically comes from Power Rangers, because I cannot think of an anime counterpart where they necessarily do that. So, I don't know. If I'm missing one, let me know. But I know in my heart that I'm thinking of Power Rangers, and that's why my brain keeps coming to it. So, I had to fight that urge really strongly. So I ended up with a red and gold sweater, which I think looks really good on him. Again, Gryffindor colors unintentionally. But I like how it turned out, and I think it looks really good on him, especially with the blonde, because the gold kind of ties the yellow into the design, especially with the light color from the khaki pants. And I think he does look like a cute and studious kind of character who can also be friendly and energetic and cheerful. And like I said, he is the group's golden retriever. So I do really like how he turned out ultimately for his civilian design. Now, moving on to his magical design, like I mentioned earlier, moving this from chibi to full-body normal style, there was some troubleshooting that had to come into play. Especially because, yes, I know that it's a magical design. I don't have to show the fasteners on the armor and the way that it goes around the back and the strap that holds it in place. However, my brain does not work that way. My brain just does not function that way. The only thing I could think without including it was, how is it staying on there? It's magic. Okay, how? And it drives me up the wall. But because of that, I had to do a bit of troubleshooting on exactly how I wanted, for example, the breastplate to be shaped, especially because he's turned the other way, in that his head's not, but the rest of his body is. So I had to figure out, okay, how's the cape going to fall at that angle? How is it going to do that? And some other troubleshooting that I had to do. I didn't catch the sketching process for this. I forgot to hit record. But a bit of troubleshooting that I really had to do was whenever I did his shoes. Okay, how do I want the boots to look? How do I want the little hoof kind of indicator to look on it? Do I want it to look like it's just printed on there? That was ultimately what I went with, but I might change it later because all of these are essentially first draft character designs. Everything visually is subject to change at one point down the road. It's just possible, and it's one thing that I have to be open to. However, what really got me was definitely the cape. I don't know why the cape gave me such trouble with trying to figure out exactly how it should be on there. I did like the idea of it being an asymmetrical cape. That I really liked, I really enjoyed, and I thought it was fitting. I liked the asymmetricalness of the design. One thing I didn't mention, actually, whenever I was making the chibi, was on his gloves. Okay, on his gloves, you know how I mentioned that, you know, the long hair bit with the tuft at the end, that was, you know, to represent the unicorn tail. It was inspired by Beyblade and Ray from Beyblade. Well, the gloves are kind of inspired by Max from Beyblade to an extent. A little bit. Because At least in part. Because I liked the, some areas of finger uncovered and then others were covered. I don't know why I always kind of liked how they did that for Max and G Revolution, but I really did. I thought it was a neat little design. And I've done that with other characters in the past, but I really liked it for him, and I don't know why I went with, like, the middle 2 fingers having it. I don't know. That was just a me thing. But I like the end result, and it also kind of reminded me of the finger stripes on the Nightwing costume. And with the blue going down the arms of the Nightwing costume of, well, one iteration of the Nightwing costume. There have been so many iterations of all the Nightwing costumes, of all the Batman character costumes in DC. But I always liked the Nightwing one that had, like, the finger stripes. And that was another thing that I really liked, especially where it was blue. It made me think of that as well. So I really liked that idea, so I kept it. And I thought it was a neat little thing, and it's also a neat little homage to something that inspired me, which, not only Beyblade, but also Batman stuff, because I was such a Batman kid. And it's neat to think of how little design details like that are inspired by different things. And different things that we've watched, and that we may not think of until now, that have really influenced it, but then we pick out little things that do influence like that. Which I thought was really neat. So, there you go, 2 aspects of the character design that are 2 of them inspired by Beyblade, and then one of them inspired by Batman. But I liked the asymmetrical cape, but figuring out how it was going to drape over the shoulders at that angle, I don't know why that gave me such fits. It just did, for some reason, in the sketching process. Now, I think it wasn't until the actual inking phase that I fixed the boots, though, because the little cloth that's supposed to represent the fetlocks on a unicorn, or any other horse, it's just unicorns are supposed to have, like, longer fetlocks and whatnot, like, with the cloth that I have to represent that, figuring out how I wanted the boots to look in the actual outfit was a bit frustrating. It was a little frustrating because the way that they looked in the chibi picture, they almost looked like they'd be higher up than just at the ankle. Everything looked like it would come up higher, and I get that on a chibi version that looks fine because of the proportions. But I ran into the issue when I was doing it of, oh, yeah, that's up a little too high. I need that lower. Because I did, and I didn't want to have the boot come up higher and then the cloth look like it's, like, tied around the ankle of the boot. I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to look like it was coming off the top of the boot, but also around the ankle area. And it took a bit of finagling to get that to where it actually looked right. I'm glad that I did, but it did take quite a bit of finagling. And then getting onto the color, once I had all the lines done with the color, I've learned that I need to do some studies on how to color and shade gold and other metals. I have really realized that, especially if armor is going to be a part of this, and it is, I need to learn to properly shade and color metals. So I'm going to be doing some studies on that. I think that's going to be something that's going to be very useful for me to learn. But because of where I struggle with that, trying to shade the angle at which I had the breastplate, especially with the way he's holding and supposed to be playing the lyre, I had so much trouble figuring out where and how I needed to shade it exactly. It was just a little bit of a nightmare. So I'm definitely going to be learning. It's one of those things, when you try and draw things, you will find where you have your weaknesses. And when you find those weaknesses, don't avoid them. Go learn how to do them. That's my little tidbit of art advice. When you find your weaknesses, don't avoid them. Just go learn how to do it properly. It might be frustrating to do, and you may not necessarily enjoy it, but it's going to pay off in the long run. Just make sure that you do studies focusing in on that, so that you know what you're trying to improve on. But anyway, back to all this. I was having a lot of fun with it, And I tried to shade and color, especially the gem, the same way I did in the chibi picture. Because I do like how that came out with matching the color of the gem to the color of his eyes. And I do really like the final result and the way I did end up finagling everything to look with my regular style, getting away from the chibi design, even with having to troubleshoot and figure out, okay, how will this stuff actually work? And again, I know magic, but my brain has to understand the mechanics or it's just going to stick on that. So, I really enjoyed doing this, and I really like having the two, the civilian design and the transformed design, side by side so I can see how they look together and see the differences between them. I really like it, and I think it turned out really cool. And I hope you guys liked this one. I'm going to try and do more videos like this. Again, I really enjoyed it. And also, yeah, I only have so many topic videos, video ideas, and story time videos to go around. So I need to start spacing those out. But I also really like having a chance to talk about my characters and about my stories with you guys. I'd like to share more than just Trace as well, because I think that this could be a lot of fun. And so now that we've heard about Linden, about our light element unicorn character, is there anyone else that I've mentioned for Trace that you guys want to hear about next? I think it would be a lot of fun to do more of these, and to maybe talk about Trace as a whole. And is there any of the modern time characters that you want to hear about, or is there any of the past characters that you'd like to hear about? Because I can talk about any of them at length and have a lot of fun. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys look forward to knowing more. And if you have any special or specific questions, let me know down below. I think that would be really cool. I'd love to answer specific questions about it, especially if I can turn it into a video, because then I get to, again, talk at length about my characters. But thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you a ton to my to my patrons on Patreon, Inside Chaos, Salmon, and Creativa Artly. Thank you guys so much, and everyone, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!